Say it.
Vampires.
Ooh, scary fictions.
If you go back and look at all the movies that included vampires from the past few years, you would notice that there are vampire movies, and then there are movies that just flat out make fun of vampires.
Vampires don't do dishes.
This got me wondering, why are we so obsessed with these mythical creatures? I don't know about you, but I'm gonna need some background before uncovering this mystery. The general myth of vampires has existed for centuries, and were almost as popular as they are today, back in the Middle Ages. The universally accepted characteristics of vampires are that they consume human blood,
I hit the main artery.
they go out at night and avoid sunlight, they have superhuman strength,
Hello, vampire.
a hypnotic effect on their victims, and can't see themselves in mirrors. Pretty run-of-the-mill stuff that pretty much anyone would know. The history of vampires in film, predating Twilight, is all a bit boring compared to the saucy and addicting drama this series added to the vampire trope. Vampires have always been considered to be prominent figures in film and media, specifically from the inception of this guy, Nosferatu. Even if you don't know him by name, it's likely that this figure is surprisingly familiar. That's because he's undeniably famous, showing up plenty of times since his original debut in 1922, even showing up in an episode of SpongeBob.
Nosferatu.
Following Nosferatu came Dracula in 1931, and then again in the 90s, and you pretty much know how it goes from here. Creepy castles, some cape wearing, and a lot of "I want to drink your blood" blah blah blah.
I don't say blah, blah, blah.
There are literally dozens of reasons why vampires are such attractive characters to human audiences. Psychologically, people tend to be drawn to partners that have enough resources to grant them and their children good survival rates. This doesn't just refer to racks on racks of cash. Vampires are immortal.
I became a vampire when I was 16.
17.
And living forever is perhaps the most amazing resource of all when you're looking out for your child's future. People also desire partners who have the ability to protect their children and themselves, which vampires obviously have down pat, considering their ridiculous superhuman strength and durability. Lastly, BasicHumanPsychology.com themselves write that vampires are just hot.
She for real?
They know how to play into that human flirtation and can easily romance those that they meet, allowing them to play into people's romantic preferences. There is a lot more to our obsession with vampires. We're drawn to these figures because they're loners who never truly feel alone, something human beings might envy or desire to embody themselves. That way, we don't need to fear rejection and could either live our lives happily with those who do accept us, or alone in peace. Vampires themselves can also avoid the annoyingness of technological change. They don't rely on technology for their needs and have survived throughout time despite the technology that's available to them.
It's quite amazing to see how far technology can go forward.
This independence is something that humans would surely benefit from, since we would never run out of anything that would leave us in danger. Except for blood, of course. They are powerful, both in the sense of their physical abilities, but also in their intelligence. Having the ability to live forever gives one the opportunity to study and perfect whatever their heart desires. This capacity to be inhumanly smart is alluring, not only because of the benefits it would bring you, but also because it's something that we simply can't have, making it more desirable. Their supernatural abilities are not the only thing that we're jealous of. Let's talk about their looks.
You find us beautiful, magical.
When you're a vampire, you become very sexy.
There's no denying that vampires are totally cool looking, if not totally attractive as well. They have pale skin, fangs, and amazing bone structure. I mean, what's not to envy? Their need for very little sleep while maintaining immaculate looks is something that any human being would surely desire for themselves. By definition, vampires are the ultimate bad boys. They live however they want regardless of the law. They don't care about other people. They are free. Vampires are all that we, as humans, want, but can't have, making them clearly desirable subjects that we can't help but give our attention to. Despite the pretty plentiful amount of vampire references in media predating the 2000s, including Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Interview with a Vampire, and Underworld, vampires seem to get their steam back as a trend with the inception of the Twilight series. No longer are vampires just creepy guys living in remote castles who want to prey on young women. They're now attractive young men and women who have the potential to romance any human they want. Talk about an upgrade. The vampires in the Twilight series, they take on all the classic characteristics that vampires usually embody, except almost always with a twist. Like, they don't burn in the sunlight, they glow. And they crave human blood, but are vegetarian. They embody all the characteristics of vampires, which naturally draws humans to vampires. They have the ability to run away from the annoyingness of everyday life and survive wherever they please. They have mastered their crafts, passions, and intelligence, standing out as probably the smartest students at their local high school, and as the best in their field as Carlisle is. I don't know which side of the camp you were on, but people either loved this series or despised it. Those who loved the series really, really loved it. Most of the fanatic audience of this series was made up of young women who grew attached to the fantastical creatures of the plot and the love triangle in which they were involved. Most likely, some of you watching probably went through a Twilight phase at some point, arguing with your besties about whether Jacob or Edward deserved to be Bella's love. I certainly know I was in that position when I was 13. A whole bunch of new television dramas popped up after the series gained big amounts of attention. Vampire Diaries also had a big run of fame and popularity. It was on the air for 8 years, starting in 2011, with 171 episodes. Similarly to Twilight, a love triangle takes center stage in this vampire series as well, focusing on a human teenage girl stuck between two brothers who are both in love with her. Talk about being stuck between a vampire and a hard place. Vampire Diaries was so popular, in fact, that the producers decided to make it immortal, just like the vampires that star in it. Okay, not really, but the originals was spawned as its spin-off of the show in 2013, lasting a year longer than Vampire Diaries, and bringing fans whole new levels of drama. And then ever more recently, Legacies was created as another spin-off of the show. It seems like these television vampires might actually live forever. True Blood was yet another series about vampires that came about because of Twilight's impact. In a lot of ways, True Blood set itself apart from Vampire Diaries and Twilight. It included LGBTQ stories and narratives, it brought a little more horror to the vampire name, and had lots of messaging about civil rights in its narrative. It's also quite different from these other series, as vampires live peacefully within human society. These shows all include vampires with very similar traits as those in Twilight, making them just as appealing to their viewers. All of these vampires' immortality and unlimited resources intrigued many viewers, enough for all of these shows to be on the air for more than 6 years each. Not as long as a vampire's lifetime, but impressively long if you ask me. As much as those superfans may really love Twilight, Vampire Diaries, and True Blood, there was also another side to the public who absolutely hated the Twilight series. This movement of resentment clearly had to result in a film movement of its own, the vampire parody movie. This included such titles as Vampires Suck, Vamps, and Breaking Wind, among many more very original titles. Vampires Suck and Breaking Wind are two films that directly make fun of the Twilight series. The rest of the films are not direct reactions to Twilight, but take on the very same vampire tropes with really tacky portrayals and simple humor, very much making fun of the concept of a vampire and poking fun at those who like them. So, with all of this reasoning as to why vampires are actually admirable creatures for humans, why is there so much hate around vampire obsessions? There is no actual reason that people should have had such a complete adverse reaction to the Twilight series, Vampire Diaries, or any other vampire series. All of these series are, more or less, just run-of-the-mill franchises that play into people's penchants for romance and drama. There's no denying that something about vampires is inherently cool. nothing about people's obsessions with vampires is out of the ordinary. As we've seen, it actually makes a ton of sense. We have always, since the very beginning of film and television, been obsessed with the idea and image of the all-powerful vampire. Our psychology literally drives us to love these fantastical creatures, despite their potential for horror and destruction. But, of course, that dangerous quality only makes us want them more. So, which vampire series caught your attention the most? Whose team were you on? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching! Give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to The Things for more great content about your favorite TV shows and movies. We'll see you next time!